Hello everyone, welcome to Franklin Park Zoo's Zoo to You. My name is Nicole. I'm a senior keeper in the Hooves and Horns department. And today we're hanging out with our two common ostriches. We have Julius over here on your left and Wub over here on the right. Julius is 6 years old and Wub is 11. And they have just returned back to exhibit after some time away, and that's why we're doing Zoo to You today. So these guys were behind the scenes and we were getting a lot of questions about why they were off exhibit. And that's because there was something in their natural environment around here in New England called avian flu. And it's just an illness that birds can get. Wild populations, mostly of waterfowl, can spread this illness. So we do have geese around the zoo. We wanted to be able to assess that threat to their health and make sure that they were going to be healthy before we brought them back out here to their habitat. These guys are big birds and they take up a lot of space, and they really seem to prefer their habitat. So not only their health but also their mental health were taken into account as well. And these guys just enjoy their exhibit so much, and the threat has decreased a little bit, enough that it's safe enough for them to come out. There's still some other birds here behind the scenes, so just keep updated on that, and we'll continue to monitor that threat as time goes on. But these guys are very happy to be back, as you can see. A few little things about them. These guys are very much into training. They're very, very inquisitive creatures. Right now they're just earning some snacks for free. They get this nice grain mixture here. They also get some greens. But when you're visiting them, they tend to be interested in what you're doing, so they tend to draw quite the crowd and come over. You can tell them apart pretty easily. Julius has some dark coloration, and Wub is a little bit lighter in color. She's gray, and that's typical difference between male and female birds. Julius also does some very interesting displays where he does a breeding dance from maybe March to October, early October. I haven't seen him dance in a little while recently, but that's exactly what he does. He dances. He kind of sits down and he'll wave his wings back and forth. He also makes a call that a lot of guests mistake for the lions. It's called booming, where it's kind of like a roar almost. It kind of is like three large pulsating noises. So very, very interesting. And he's also a little bit taller, so he weighs more as well. He's about 365 pounds, and she is around 300 pounds, which is typical for males and females as well. And feel free, as I'm chatting, to throw some questions in the comments. We'd love to hear anything that you're interested in and questions that you have. These guys can run pretty quick. That's one of the things that they're known for. They can run up to 40 miles an hour in a sprint, but they can hold about a 30 mile an hour pace when they're just running. Typically, that's what they're going to use to avoid a threat, or maybe they'll kick if the threat gets too close to them. They have some really powerful toes with toenails on them, so the kick is probably not going to feel too good, but also that claw is going to do a lot of damage. These guys also, one of the myths about them is that they have their heads in the sand. That is just a myth. These guys do, to avoid predators, if they're already lying down, they might stretch their necks out along the ground to kind of blend in a little bit, but typically they're not going to be actually burying their heads. But they do live in sandy environments. They can live in deserts, they can live in grasslands. They're found pretty much throughout Africa, so they have quite the range, and there's a few different subspecies as well. The most endangered subspecies would be the red-necked North African subspecies, which are critically endangered. There are various groups working to reintroduce those birds into their natural environment, so it's something really interesting there. And they're just enjoying their morning breakfast. So these
their regular diet?
This is their regular diet. So they get they'll eat about maybe like 2 to 3 full scoops of this grain per day. They also get greens. So we kind of rotate it for them. So they get escarole, romaine, kale, collards. They also, for variety, may get some alf, compressed hay cubes for a snack, or they like grapes. These guys also typically do a lot of grazing on their habitat as well. They really like grasses. Typically in their natural environment, they're going to be eating grasses and fruits and seeds. So all sorts of things that they can peck at. One of their main things they do is peck. They spend a lot of their days pecking and walking. It's pretty much, people call them, say they have small brains, which typically, I mean, I only moderately agree with. I do love them a lot. They aren't the most intelligent birds. Their main purpose is to peck and to eat. And a lot of times we'll play into that when we're trying to keep them busy and stimulated throughout the day with enrichment activities or, you know, toys that are going to stimulate their natural behaviors. So we may hang up some maybe kid baby key toys on their fence here that they can peck at. Maybe we'll put some things up that make sound when they peck them, so they can interact with that. And maybe we'll give them some feeders where they have to peck in order to get the food out, which encourages a lot of those natural behaviors. You can see they're very observant as well. They have those big, beautiful eyes that help them survey their habitat and the area around them to look for threats. What are you guys thinking? So a lot of the animals on this habitat are going to have more active times, maybe like early morning or late towards the evening, where you're gonna see them up and moving. But these guys are kind of moving all day. I'd say when it's really, really warm out, you might find them kind of hunkering down or like staying low and laying down and taking a rest. They also tend to hunker down in the rain, so they'll sit down and just kind of wait out a storm.
We have a question from Jessica.
Sure.
Do they interact with other animals in their habitats? Maybe we could talk about those guys over there.
Sure. The question was, do they interact with other animals in their habitat? And they do, and that's really important for them as well. In their natural environment, they're going to be interacting with all sorts of animals. And there is a social dynamic in this habitat that we try to help foster various relationships in that way. So the wildebeest tend to stick to themselves, who are behind you. We have 3, Ellie, Bobby, and Lulu. And they tend to be more towards the bottom. I think they could be at the top if they wanted, but they're pretty laid back. The ostriches don't know it, but for a while they were in charge. They're just so big that they were kind of intimidating. I'd say our Hartman mountain zebras are kind of the pushier ones at the moment right now, which is why we do have them behind the scenes. Otherwise they'd be wanting to eat all this nice tasty grain and they'd be trying to steal the show. I'd say Julius is, they'll kind of stay back away from him, but Wub, they'll try to move her over so that they can have her breakfast. And so we try to provide plenty of opportunities and spread out their food for them. And, you know, some of those interactions are positive as well, and they're, you know, providing more stimulation in their environment for each other, and it's all good to see. Right now they're doing a little bit of preening while Wub is, so they got to keep their feather quality nice and healthy, so you might see them doing that throughout the day. They also take dust baths, which is one of my favorite things to see. We actually have a big sand pile on exhibit right now for them, and not everyone seems to enjoy it. The wildebeest roll in it, well, I've just pecked my finger. The wildebeest roll in it, the zebras roll in it, and the ostriches will lay down and they'll kind of spread their feathers around and kick up that dust, and it will help dry out, you know, any moisture on their skin and keep them nice and healthy. So, which is fun to see. They'll roll their necks around in it as well. So maybe that's also where the head in the sand came from. But it's a nice quiet morning here. We're getting a good look at their whole bodies. like I said, this is kind of their favorite place to be, right up front where everyone is. So I'm excited they're back to hang out with everybody. We are excited to have them, huh? And these guys can live into their 20s. It's not uncommon. So they're in their teens right now, so they're still fairly young. Wub still lays eggs, so she can lay up to 40 eggs in a season, even more. Some ostriches will lay up to 100. For her, I think she laid about at least 40 this year, and usually they'll have a big nest full of eggs that one female will kind of rotate all the eggs and kind of determine which eggs maybe to keep and which ones to not, because I don't think they need 40 little children to take care of. But one female will take care of the nest, but multiple females will actually lay eggs in that nest. And typically females will sit during the day, and maybe the male, because he's darker in color, he probably has better camouflage at night, and he'll be the one sitting at night. Someone's got an itchy head. You got an itchy head?
Do the eggs hatch?
Do the eggs hatch? Of course they do. Here at Franklin Park Zoo, we do not hatch the eggs because we have our hands full with these two guys here, and that's about the space we have is for 2 adult ostriches. It's not out of the realm of possibility, but we're happy with the 2 guys we have here. And typically, he's still learning how to be an adult male, so chances are they're not fertile anyways. But that is a very good question. Typically, chicks will be taken care of by their parents, and they might stay with a flock for about 10 months or so, and then kind of go off and do their own thing. These guys typically want to eat some greens. We're going to switch it up a little bit here. So flocks can range from 10 or fewer birds, but we've also seen flocks of over 100 birds, which I could not imagine seeing 100 running ostriches together. That would be pretty exciting. They're sharing. How nice. Do we have any other questions here today?
No questions, so if you want to wrap up.
Sure. Well, thank you guys so much for listening this morning. I'm really happy you guys get to hang out with the ostriches and I today. And Julius and Wub are happy to be out, so make sure when you visit you come say hi to them. And thank you all. Have a nice day.